Let me introduce the summer school for today. This is a school. I want to talk a little bit very briefly about organization in case any issues come up, and also about the background of that school, which is rooted in 2 projects. So first, an organizational hint. If you like any kind of information, just go to nobias-project.eu, which hosts the homepage of the summer school website and which is linked from there prominently. So if you like any information, hopefully you find it there. We will have in the summer school lectures of 90 minutes, given by a diverse set of lecturers. Ricardo from Northeastern University, Silicon Valley campus, Katharina from Austria, from Digital Age Research Center of University of Klagenfurt, Stephanie Law from the Law School at University of Southampton, United Kingdom, and Matthias Niepert from NEC Heidelberg Research in Germany. We will also have keynotes. Actually, we will start with one keynote this morning with Krishna Gumadi, who is from the Max Planck Institute for Computer Science, Saarbrücken. We will have further keynotes from Alexandra Olteanu for Microsoft Research, from Hinrich Schütze from LMU Munich, and from Annette Zimmermann, the Department of Philosophy at University of York, UK, and also she's a fellow at Harvard. We will have a no bias lunchroom, so you can meet other attendees, reflect and discuss with them. It's a WonderMe room. The link is a little bit complicated, but you may easily find it when you go to NoBIAS-project.eu and then go on to follow to the NoBIAS Summer School link, and there you'll find it in the corresponding schedule. We have a broad attendance to the lectures, the keynotes, and the lunchroom. All these are free to join by the public, in whole or in part. We have fantastic registration numbers, quite overwhelmed by that. We were thinking about several dozen now. For today, we have 155 registrations. I look forward to discussing with you. And over the days that are to come, of course, people can always register late and just join. So feel free to recommend to colleagues. We'll hope we'll see you at many of our lectures and keynotes. There are also workshops that we do internally for our European training network. While they are mentioned, sorry, they are only internally for PhD students of this European training network. There were a few people who tried to register for them, but as we said on the webpage, this is actually mainly an event for this project No Bias. But then we thought, when we have such a great set of lecturers and keynotes, why not open that to the public? And it seems that the registration numbers confirm this point of view, that this is of broad interest. So much about the school itself, very briefly. Who are the organizers? This is especially Sarah, who did all the heavy lifting in order to organize the school, get the website up, chairing the meeting, the WebEx event, and the WonderMe meeting today, tomorrow, and on Wednesday. My name is Steffen Staab from University of Stuttgart and University of Southampton. And we both work in the IRIS project of University of Stuttgart. And I organize this event mainly in my role as being principal investigator of the No Bias European Training Network, funded by the European Commission. The summer school, we did not plan on our own. We were advised by several people from the No Bias Training Network, as there is Mayra Russo-Potero, who is a PhD student at the University of Hanover, as there is Stephanie Law, who will also be a lecturer, and she comes from University of Southampton. Katharina Kinder-Kolanda is also a lecturer from University of Klagenfurt, and Irene Tutsi used to be the project coordinator for No Bias before she moved on to a full professorship at Free University Berlin. Now, let's give you a little bit of brief introduction to NoBIAS and to IRIS. So you have a little bit an idea where we come from and why we do this summer school. So NoBIAS is, as I said, a European training network. It's about training and research. So the European Commission funds with this project 15 PhD students, also called early stage researchers, that are hosted at 8 beneficiaries, mostly universities, but with SCHUFA also one commercial partner. And there are 11 further partners who don't receive money, but where PhD students will spend secondments there in order to extend their point of view. And the idea of NoBIAS is that we do not focus on computer science alone, but that we also take on board legal points of view and social science points of view, because the very notions of fairness and bias is not just to be treated as an algorithmic aspect, but really we need a framework that also considers societal concerns and societal backgrounds of how fairness and bias comes into being. And while some people actually consider fairness and bias to be a problem of the algorithms that we entertain, I also see the algorithms and digital collections of data as an opportunity to measure to which extent we achieve fairness and bias, and to counter unfair biases in the world, whether that's algorithmic or non-algorithmic. So software applications decide upon our fate. I think all people who will join this event over these 3 days will already be aware of that. Just as a brief reminder, of course, we started from such observations that we have legal judgments. Compass is infamous for judging on people to be given a certain pardon or not, release or not. Credit risk assignments is a very old business. Indeed, one of our partners of NoBIAS is SCHUFA, a credit risk assignment agency, one could describe it. And it has been in business for almost 100 years, because without assigning proper risk, you can also not provide credits with low interest. So there is an inherent tension between identifying risk, but not discriminating in an unfair manner. And of course, that influences our lives, and working towards a fair credit risk assessment is one of the tasks of the project. We know about the Amazon same-day delivery initiative, and well, it was not same day in every region. That depended on the zip code, and then, of course, we know the story that was determined to depend on ethnicity, as some of the zip codes are more heavily populated by people of color than others, and it turned out that people of color were less well served by the same day delivery. So sometimes, of course, these kind of unfair discriminations are not put forward willfully or intentionally, but they happen. And of course, that's something to observe and something to counter. Insurance tariffs, or no insurance at all, is a problem. Medical judgments, treatment or not, transplant or not, that might have to do with decisions that are also influenced by algorithms. University admissions, whether we have affirmative action or not, of course, this is not just an algorithmic issue, it's also an issue for society, where we as society have to discuss what we want. There is no automatism that says affirmative action is good or bad. So that's why we do not only have lecturers in computer science, but for example, also from philosophy. Job applications is an infamous one if someone is declined a job interview just because of hitting certain keywords. And so in NoBIAS, we try to provide a generalizing framework by looking at the whole life cycle of algorithms, and in particular of algorithms that are trained by machine learning. And the very simplified life cycle that we studied has to do with data that is collected. And already in this data collection process, unfairness may enter depending on how the data is collected. If that data is collected from a discriminating past, obviously when we learn how people behaved in the past, we will discriminate again. So data collection is something which needs to be critically inspected. The algorithms themselves always have certain inductive biases, and they need to have them. Otherwise, they could not perform successfully their machine learning tasks. But which biases they have, unfair ones or ones that we would consider fair, this of course is a matter of research and a matter of further development. And once we have results, there is the question, what do we do with these results? There is not a single solution that fits all applications. I always like to cite the example of a life insurance. Obviously, we cannot give an 80-year-old person the same kind of life insurance that we give to an 18-year-old person. And so results of discrimination has to be considered in light of a broader framework of societal discussions. And we consider applications. So understanding bias in data, what often happens is that protected characteristics, age, gender, ethnicity are left out. So this seems to be at first hand a good strategy to fight unfair discrimination, but at a closer look, it is not. Because if you don't know how ethnicity is correlated with the zip code, you cannot determine that same-day delivery in some regions, but not in others, might unfairly discriminate against people of color. So having such kind of information might be useful to fight unfair discrimination. That, of course, leads also to legal questions, whether it's even legal to collect this information. Quite often, for example, in Germany, I can say, we cannot say easily how heavily immigrants were affected by coronavirus, simply because we don't have that kind of data. That, of course, means without having that data, we cannot entertain measures that helps us to fight the coronavirus in immigrant groups, if that happens to be a problematic case, which I don't know because we lack the data. So then we have biases in our data collection, for example, because we exclude data, because we select data that's to find easily, because people self-select whether they are part of some data set. So we need to report on the collection efforts, report bias there, detect bias there, and be aware of pernicious feedback loops. So sometimes some policies are well-intended. For example, the US introduced one policy that people must not submit criminal records with their job applications, which was well-intended in order to give them a chance on the job market. But as a result, fewer people of color, which were deemed to have black names, names that are preferred by people of color, were then hired as a result. So feedback loops can be quite complicated. And this is not only a matter of computer science, of course, it's a matter of sociology to understand these feedback loops, counter them, and hopefully also influence policy making. In machine learning algorithms, we want to mitigate bias by pre-processing, for example, resampling in order to correct biases that are there in our data. During processing, of course, there are a number of papers that consider the modification of the loss functions such that fairness becomes a regularizer, to model latent fair classes and impose fairness constraints. Once the machine learning has progressed, post-processing might also post-process the bias decisions or produce further classifiers on top of the results. Accounting for bias in results, I pointed in that direction already, is that we do not only state results and possibly biases, but that we explain the developer, domain expert, or the lawyer what these explanations, what these biases are that we have found. So the representation of bias may be a source of knowledge that might influence our developments, that may influence legal judgments, and that may be very important knowledge by itself. For example, also in order to do new data collections and relieve the bias found. So we put this together in a framework. The framework, of course, mainly summarizes our understanding at the beginning of the project. So that's what we published late last year as an introductory survey, and you'll have the citation for that paper down here. So you might want to take a look there, and it's also referenced, of course, from our homepage of our NoBIAS project. The second project, this introduction will be a bit shorter, is the Stuttgart Research Focus, the Interchange Forum for Reflecting on Intelligent Systems. The University of Stuttgart has determined its profile to provide intelligent systems for a sustainable future. And so part of the sustainability is that we critically reflect on intelligent systems in a very broad sense. Intelligent systems are not only algorithms. Intelligent systems also include hardware, whether that's hardware for mobility, automobiles, trains, flights. It may include all kind of control mechanisms. It may include all kind of engineering results. And IRIS is there in order to reflect critically on how these systems that become more and more complicated and more intelligent help us to address societal concerns. For example, a major effort is towards intelligent buildings, and also there is the question, to which extent do such developments influence society in a positive or a negative way? IRIS is there to support teaching, and this event, these 3 days, of course, hopefully helps us with this effort and promotes this activity. The effort is there to nurture interdisciplinary research, which is also what we do in the NoBIAS project, and to engage with the public. So we'll have the school. We also intend to record the lectures and keynotes. And of course, we hope that we will see more people viewing what our lecturers and keynotes will have to say. To conclude this brief introduction, in case of any issues, please contact us, Sierra, or myself. Below here, you find our email addresses, Sierra Kaiser at ife.unistuttgart.de or Steffen Staab at ipvs.unistuttgart.de. And we'll try to resolve that as fast as possible. Now, enjoy the summer school. I was a little bit fast with my introduction, so I think that gives every one of us the possibility to get hold of a cup of coffee, enjoy, relax, and in 10 minutes, we will start our first keynote. And for this purpose, I will hand over Simone. Simone is a PhD student in NoBIAS, and that will actually be also part of our training and research, that all the PhD students will actually present our lecturers and our keynotes. So I'm glad to hand over to Simone, but hold on for 10 minutes and then we will start our first event. Welcome and enjoy.